Hello and good morning everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today. That is all around security solutions for Microsoft Azure. So we're joined here by Gemma Allen from Barracuda, who's going to be presenting the webinar for you.
Hi. Good morning everybody. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Today we're going to discuss the do interactions on that website. We're taking data, maybe even taking in payments. And as these start to grow in an ad hoc fashion, this is where it can start to get challenging for you. That small one website started on one person's credit card is now a dozen websites on a dozen different credit cards. Not only is finance going to have problems managing that, but also IT are. That's if IT even know these exist. It's happened to me in my career that I've been told about a new website that as an IT operations engineer we had no idea existed. And then you're expected to manage it. So the other thing that you have to consider once you put your solutions onto a cloud endpoint is they're publicly available to pretty much whoever. And more to the point, companies like Microsoft actually publishes a list of all the IP addresses in Azure. So it's not exactly hard for me to go and find all the IPs in Azure and then run some kind of scan against all of those IPs. And if I do it discreetly enough, I'm not going to trigger any of Microsoft's protections, because Microsoft's protections are not for tiny traffic amounts. Microsoft's protections are for the entire cloud that they provide to you. So once somebody's found your website and they've found a way in, or perhaps they've found some ports that have been left open because those developers, they know about developing websites, they know about writing code, they don't necessarily specialize in security. They do things to get them to work and don't know any better. And possibly the people who started the website in the first place are not IT professionals either, so they can't provide a counter check for security. So then you've got a website published to the internet, collecting personal information and data, taking payments, interacting now with your more advanced on-premise systems. You've now put a SQL database up there, you've put AD extensions, you've got company information located in a virtual network within your cloud. And you've got ways into that you didn't intend or want. So we need to take this back a step. Okay, it's not enough to go, yes, the cloud is great, it's flexible, I can build something today, I can build it tomorrow. It's not about what you can do right now, always. It's about how this needs to be long-term and in the future. So play the long game when you start your cloud projects. Now, if you've been doing some of your research already, you will probably have already come across this slide. The shared responsibility model or shared security model, depending how it's addressed. And this applies to all cloud providers. But in the case of Azure, we'll break it down as follows. Microsoft Azure provides you the physical infrastructure, the networking infrastructure, it provides you the virtualization layer, and it takes care of the security of those elements. It's got secure data centers with all the required compliance regulations to allowing access into those data centers. The virtualization layer separates your traffic from somebody else's. However, once you start building your own solutions in the cloud, you do need to start taking concerns and looking at your network security. How are you going to manage identity and access control? Great, you've got Azure AD, but who gives rights to who to do what? Once you've started to deploy various operating systems and platforms, who's going to patch them? Who's responsible for that? And lastly, if you're putting sensitive data in the cloud, is it encrypted? Is it encrypted on disk? Is it encrypted in transit? These are all concerns that you need to concern yourself with. These are elements that must be addressed in order to have a safe cloud platform. just like an on-premise network. You can't ignore these things and hope it will be okay. Now, Barracuda, we have 4 products to help you with this solution, or with securing these endpoints as best you can, to secure all the threat vectors. And what I mean by threat vectors are the various ways into your environment that could result in a security breach. We have a web application firewall. That concerns itself with securing your web and API endpoints. We have a next generation firewall. That goes a bit further. That concerns itself with securing your data communications, your network traffic. And then we have the email security gateway and Barracuda Essentials. And these 2 platforms are 2 different ways of securing, 1, your email services, and 2 then with Essentials starting to look into providing backups, compliance and archiving solutions as well for your cloud platforms. I'm going to start off by going a little bit more detail into the web application firewall. So in case you don't know, in case you've never come across a web application firewall before, in case you've only just encountered load balancers, a web application firewall is a specialist appliance. They really only concern themselves with web traffic and web protocols, so HTTP, HTTPS, SPDY, WebSockets. They may do some load balancing for other protocols, but really these are specialist devices. And the reason they're specialist is because they really care about what's in the content of your web requests, not about how many web requests were there a second. So as an illustration, I've got inbound inspection. So as I access the website, let's say I go to a contact page. As an example, let's say I'm uploading my CV for a new job. As I do that, I'm going to fill in the form. I'm going to put my name, my email address. I'm going to attach a Word document or PDF. Now, I click the submit button. That goes into the web application firewall first. The web application firewall then takes apart that page. It sees that the form that I filled in has 3 fields: name, email address, and attachment file upload. It's inspecting each of those 3 elements. And we're expecting those for, obviously, the OWASP top 10, so SQL injection, cross-site scripting, buffer overflows. But we're also inspecting it to see if I'm conducting any other types of attacks. Am I putting in a file upload that I shouldn't? I'm only allowed a doc or a PDF. Does that file contain a virus? That wants to be inspected as well. Also, am I coming from the country that we're expecting our users to come from? If we're only accepting applicants from the UK, then we don't need other countries accessing our website. And then we start getting into the outbound inspection. So as that response goes through, it's passed by the WAF, it hits our web servers, they're going to write their response. Probably a thank you page saying, thank you for your application. But if I had successfully got an attack through, or more to the point, if some of the code behind there was perhaps inappropriately responding, then we've got data loss prevention technology. So on the outbound response, again, the WAF can inspect it. It can rewrite the content of that response. And so you can prevent data being lost out of your website through inadvertent code exposure. And then we can head into, the more advanced use cases. So the WAF is a specialist. It really concerns itself with securing your web traffic. The key use cases that we would see for a WAF in general usage are application security. By that, I mean protecting your website, customizing the WAF to protect the critical pages of your website from the attacks that they could be vulnerable to. Active Directory integration, Azure AD. For those legacy websites which may not have supported Azure AD when they were developed, the WAF can provide a front-end security device. So it can prompt for the authentication, it can make that decision using modern solutions, and it can then allow access into your website. So you can use that to provide an SSO single sign-on option. Active Directory Federation services, if you're looking to expand Active Directory into the cloud, you're looking to use your own ADFS servers, then if you're going to be securing your website, you really should probably secure your ADFS as well. Have that security inspection on the authentication requests coming into the endpoint. After all, Active Directory contains quite a lot of your company's critical data and credentials. Load balancing. So the WAF can, again, go beyond the default load balancing available on the cloud platform in Azure. So we're not just talking source IP address and port. We are talking about cookie load balancing, session ID load balancing, persistence between servers across sessions and protocols. So all of this can be added in to enhance the application's behavior. And then we, again, come back to data loss prevention and having that reassurance that, any critical data that you do hold can't be sent out accidentally with this setup. Now, following on from the WAF, I'm going to briefly go into the next-gen firewall. So a next-gen firewall, you probably have all heard about these by now. It's been around for a number of years. But a next-gen firewall is aware of everything up to layer 7. So it's application aware, user aware. When we talk about the next-gen firewall in the cloud, we're primarily seeing 5 use cases. Use case number 1 would be connectivity. VPN tunnels, site-to-site connectivity, getting more devices of various types connected than the default Azure VPN gateway would ever allow you, and at a higher throughput. We then look at multi-tier architecture. So getting your networking in the cloud back to behaving like your network would on-premise, giving you the full live overview of your traffic. Express route solutions. So again, Microsoft themselves will recommend that you have a firewall at one end of express route at the very least. So we can be that firewall. And then traffic control. So once you've got the multi-tier architecture in place, once you've got those VPN tunnels, you can control the traffic that your users access. So you have the ability there to make decisions based on user, based on website. And lastly, access to resources. So think client site here, getting your remote users, your road warriors access into their systems via their mobile phones, via their laptops, via their PCs and iPads. So now we're taking a quick look at the 2 technologies involved in securing your network. Let's have another go at building our cloud environment. So let's start with a plan. When we build our cloud environment, what are going to be the ways into that environment? Who should be able to access it? And what should they be able to do once they're in there? And what data is available for them to read? Who should be able to have that? We need to start asking these questions at the beginning before we build things. It gets so much easier if security is in place from the start and then being inserted into an established system. So let's start simple. Let's start with a website. So in this diagram here, we have built a web app. We have built some web servers on IIS, put them all in a VNet, and we've also built ourselves an app service environment. Now, once we've got those websites in place, we're going to want to know how we can protect them, how we can load balance between those IaaS servers, because they don't have the core scaling abilities of the apps or the app service environments. And also, let's think about, do we want SSL on this website? And what are we putting on those web servers? Are there any known vulnerabilities in there? And this is where the Web Application Firewall can help. And as an extension of the Web Application Firewall, this is where the Barracuda Vulnerability Manager can help. The BVM is an online cloud-based scanning service which can scan your websites to detect security vulnerabilities. And then it can go a step further. If it can be integrated with the WAF sitting ahead of those websites, it can make its recommendations directly to the WAF, and the WAF can adapt its rule set to protect from the vulnerabilities detector. This can be done on an automated process, so if you have a release cycle that every Saturday morning you make a release at 1 AM, then you can set the vulnerability manager to scan at 2 AM, update the WAF at 3 AM, and your website by 4 AM on Saturday morning has had any security vulnerabilities secured by the WAF. So the WAF sits in front. It's an active device, so we can scale the WAFs up horizontally or vertically to get the best performance for those websites running behind. As this diagram suggests, it can support multiple services on different URLs and in different locations from where the WAFs themselves are. You only need to concern yourself about can you secure the channel of communication between the WAF and the app or the web server that it is protecting. As long as you secure that channel, the WAF can give you all the protection. We're going to go another step further now. We've got our websites deployed. We've got our protective WAFs. We've got them managing the traffic. We're now going to add into our next-gen firewalls. And the reason we're building in our next-gen firewalls is to start to create control of the traffic that the WAF is not a specialist at, the network traffic. So as we've expanded our web servers, we've built in a database tier. We want to be able to control traffic then. There's no reason why the WAF should be able to talk directly to the SQL server. It's a website specialist. It should only be able to talk to the web tier and to the app service environments that it protects. So the NG firewall, through the use of a feature in Azure called user-defined routes, which allows you to override the default routing and send traffic through a network virtual appliance. So they are underpinning this whole diagram. They're ensuring that the database tier and the web tier and the WAF tier, if any of those want to talk to each other, they must pass through the NG firewall, which then means you've got control over that traffic and you've got live views of that traffic. So the NG firewall, with a firewall rule set, is going to be allowing port 80 and port 443 between the WAF and the web tier. We're going to block access between the WAF and the database tier, and we're going to allow the web tier and the database to communicate, because that would be kind of awkward if they couldn't. And then we can also start to look at protecting the WAFs with the next-gen firewalls. So we can turn on the IPS and IDS features of the NG. We can also have the WAFs interact with the NG and pass up to the NG IPs they wish to block at the perimeter. So we're offloading that responsibility onto the front-end firewalls. And of course, we've still got the data loss prevention, and we've still got the ability to select, what files have the virus scanning, all enabled on these two products. So that's working pretty well for us now. So we're going to go another step on. So we're now going to add in here a third or fourth tier of services. We've now put in some Active Directory servers. So again, user-defined routes are underpinning that so that you can control what can communicate with Active Directory and what ports. So that's secure. You've got a bridge to the front end. Then we're also going to put in here some users. Let's imagine we put in a remote desktop or Citrix solution, and our users are accessing the web through those terminals. And this is where the benefits of the next-gen firewalls really come into play. You could just allow those users to have outbound access to the internet, do what they want, access any application they like on the internet. And again, you just don't know what this is. And in the case of this weekend's incident, the malware application was accessing or trying to access an external domain name. So by preventing this, you can view that traffic quite early in the firewall logs if you've got control of the outbound traffic. And when I say control of the outbound traffic, I mean things like URL filtering and application control. So in this example here, we've got 4 users. They're accessing Facebook, Dropbox, LinkedIn, and Office 365. We can use the application control then to say, actually, Facebook, that's not a permitted service. Dropbox, some people can use it, but not everybody. LinkedIn's fine, we trust LinkedIn. And Office 365 is also fine because everybody needs to use Office 365 for their working day. So with that in place now, we've got awareness of what's coming out of the environment, and we've got control over what's coming into the environment, and both the perimeter aspect of clients The remote access users, we've got IDS and IPS on that. And also we have, of course, the web application firewall still protecting the website, doing the deep inspection of the web traffic that a next-gen firewall doesn't tend to do. And that's our first site build. So we'll go a little bit further. We've got our first region. We now want to start looking at disaster recovery. Once we start looking at second locations, second regions, we lose some of the native connectivity options in Azure, such as VNet peering. So we then start to look again at site-to-site connectivity solutions. You may have an express route solution running. You may prefer to use VPNs. So with the next-gen firewalls, of course, if you've got them in each location, you can quite easily do a tunnel between those locations. You can have those tunnels back to your on-premise environments. And again, you can still do that as an option. Now, as we go further down with our express route solution, the NG firewalls offer a particular option that none of the other vendors can offer you. Barracuda ourselves, we have our own proprietary VPN protocol. We call it TINA. That stands for Transport Independent Network Architecture. What we really mean by that is one VPN can have multiple transports. By multiple transports, I mean multiple connectivity options. Yeah, you may have, as in this diagram, an express route link to your Azure environment. Also, Azure's in the cloud, so you can definitely get to it over the internet. And you may even have multiple internet pipes in your office right now to provide different resiliency strategies. Now, with TINA, we can run that one VPN connection over each of these transports. So we have over express route, we have a high performance, fast link with minimal latency. Over the internet, we have an internet link. Latency is debatable, performance depends on what else is going over there and the health of the internet at that point in time. But these can be made into one tunnel, and then we can start to do traffic shaping. So we can prioritize our traffic down that tunnel. So we've got SQL databases. Let's put our SQL replication traffic over the express route link. And let's make it the most important thing on that link. If that has a problem for any reason, if somebody inadvertently pulls out a power club or cuts through an MPLS line, then you have the knowledge that you can fail over to that internet connection. And once it fails over to the internet connection, your SQL replication traffic is still going to be the highest priority. All the lower priority traffic on that side of the VPN will be dropped in preference for your critical traffic. You can use the WAN optimization to make the most of that if this is a poor quality link. Now, it's great talking about this. I get the feeling sometimes that people don't believe me. So, in the name of Blue Peter, here's what I made earlier. What I have on the screen here is a little demonstration video. It's just a short snippet to show you how this failover works. So what we have here on the screen, as you can see, we have highlighted in blue the Azure hybrid tunnel. At the bottom there with the little green bars against it, we have the quality link. And by that we mean the express route link, the best performing link we've got. And then we have the bulk link. And we can actually see here we've turned on some compression and WAN optimization features in that third column. I'm going to hit play. What we can see is we have a file transfer happening. We are going to right click here and disable this tunnel to replicate the MPLS route failing. As we keep an eye on those little bars, we can see them flick over to the Azure hybrid tunnel. So we're now running across the bulk tunnel. And what you'll notice is that ping has dropped but one request. The file transfer, being TCP based, hasn't even noticed there was an impact to its performance. So this failover is pretty much seamless. If that ping hadn't hit at just the right time, you may not have even noticed that much. The monitoring would not have flickered. So the TINA solution with an NG firewall in each location can be a very powerful way of having a fast, resilient VPN infrastructure which can be built on the fly via mesh. So we've secured our network, we've got our secure encrypted connectivity, we have taken care of our web applications. So let's just think about what else we might have in our environment that could be a way of gaining access and putting malware into us. Email. Email is probably the most common way at the moment for any kind of virus or malware to spread. You get those nice emails telling you you've won $1 million or reminding you that your parking ticket is overdue and could you just click on this and open this attachment and then you'll see your invoice. And by the time you've done that, you've now infected your PC. And this is where the Email Security Gateway, if you'd like your own box to manage running in the cloud, or the Barracuda Essentials for Office 365 solutions come in. So these receive your emails first before you get to your email server. First and foremostly, your emails are going to be scanned for are they spam? Do they contain viruses? But also we can turn on our Advanced Threat Protection service. Now Advanced Threat Protection means that as the email is received and as the attachment is received, it gets sent up to the Barracuda cloud. This is where we sandbox, and with that sandboxing we can take apart that attachment. We'll pull apart the attachment, we will inspect it, and we will send on to you a comprehensive report of the risks contained within that attachment, so you know whether or not to open that. Now also then you have additional benefits such as link detection. If that link from Apple, and it's not genuinely Apple, contains a unreal URL, then you'll get highlighted that. And also you can go the next step further. You've got your email, you're detecting your viruses, you've got the advanced threat prevention, which is sandboxing and inspecting those in an environment that is of no risk to you. What about then having the backups and the archiving to allow you to recover? So that final step of enabling the ability to keep an archive of your safe emails and be able to refer back to that as you need to. But also your file systems. So if you're using SharePoint online and OneDrive, then you want to be able to quickly be able to recover those. And in the case of the recent ransomware that went out, it doesn't really matter if they've encrypted all your files if you can just click a button and restore them. You certainly don't need to pay anything up to those guys if you can just go, oh well, they're gone, but I had a backup. It was in the cloud and safe. And lastly, all of these things can be administered from a single console, so you can control and see granularly how many users you have, the number of threats that are coming in. You can custom the policies for each user as you need that to be done. So one last thing before I open this up for questions is, once you've done the basics of your cloud environment, once you have put in your security appliances, you've considered how people are getting, you have the luxury of starting to consider, how are you going to manage this? Are your long-term projects going to be DevOps related? Do you need programmatic deployment options? Do you need auto-scaling? Are you going to work with something like Puppet or Chef and REST APIs where you can interact with your devices that way rather than a GUI? How are you going to manage a high number of appliances? If everything goes brilliantly, how can you quickly access all of your devices with a minimal administration overhead? So for the next-gen firewall, we have Control Center, we have Cloud Control for the WAF, and from these you can drive hundreds of devices. And last but not least, monitoring. Monitoring is now critical in the cloud. It's not how we used to do it. You're no longer saying, is the hardware in the box working? You don't care if the hardware in the box is working. What you care about is the service operational? Are there any breaches? Is there any data coming in or out of my environment that I wouldn't be expecting? Has the traffic profile into my firewall suddenly shot up? And yet it was really quiet normally at 3 AM on a Sunday morning. And you want those things to come out into alerts. You want them into reporting systems where you can monitor that. So we have OMS integration. All our devices have syslog out, so you can keep historical logs and use those to better analyze and understand your traffic patterns and predict behavior. And of course we have email alerting, so the devices can bring to your attention when some of the traffic is out of the normal pattern. So that's it for me today. Hopefully that's given you somewhere to start with. If you have any questions, I'm going to hand back to Amy.
Thank you, Gemma. Okay, yeah, so if you do have any questions at all, there is a questions box just at the right hand side of your screen. So if you pop them in there, I can read those out for Gemma. If you would prefer to submit any questions kind of outside of the webinar, we do have an email address there, so you can submit them that way as well. Okay, we'll just wait a couple of minutes, see if any come through.
Certainly. I mean, don't be shy about asking questions. If there's anything I haven't covered or you'd like me to go into more depth, then do just let us know.
Hi Gemma, there aren't any questions, so it looks like you might have covered everything during the webinar, but as mentioned before, if you do have any questions, feel free to email the email address on your screen there, and there is a feedback form at the end, so if you would like any further information or call back, just pop that in there and one of our specialists will be in touch with you. So thanks for your time everyone today, and thank you Gemma also for presenting on the webinar.
No problem. Thank you everybody. Bye.
Thank you.